There's not a single verse from Genesis to Revelation that condemns committed, loving, same-sex relationships. And in fact, when Jesus doesn't say anything about homosexuality, but when he does speak about sexuality, he says that the equivalent of LGBT people, eunuchs, who were people who had queer gender identities, often they were men who would be considered like women. He said eunuchs have a place in his kingdom. So the Bible doesn't say anything opposing same-sex relationships. And the one time Jesus does speak about sexuality and sexual minorities, he affirms us.
Time for a truth brew. Hello, I had to do an emergency taping and provide a part 2 of how to respond to the gay progressive Christian. Well, simply because I left something out. So this was my option. I decided to make a mini part 2. Hopefully it'll just be less than 5 minutes. It's an easy fix. But I just want to address to the clipping you just saw of Brandon Robertson at the beginning of this video, claiming that Jesus doesn't mention anything about homosexuality, claiming that even the beginning of the Bible to Revelation mentions nothing about the lifestyle of the homosexual, which that is blatantly not true. Okay. Let me just say this real quick. When the Bible was written, I'll even speak on particularly the New Testament. This is easy to figure out and to come to reason about, and to conclude that the letters in the Bible were originally written to who? Were intended for who? Those who believe in God. I'm sure Brandon would agree. And were they originally intended for the whole world? No. These letters were circulated to believing Jews and even believing non-Jews. Okay? So, coming from the Gospels were written to believing Jews originally. And these believing Jews already believed, most of them, I would say 95% of them, if not all of them, were dedicated to the readings of the Old Testament. So they already knew what was wrong in the eyes of God. Observing the Levitical laws and even the Ten Commandments. Part of the staple of the home for the Jewish man from boyhood was to learn these laws extensively, hours on end. So Jesus didn't have to remind the Jews what's wrong against God, what God describes as wrong. So let's just kind of conclude and just come to reason that, let's make this illustration. You go to a public pool, and does the lifeguard always have to warn the swimmer about not running on the wet floor around the pool, not to run around, or to have the kids safe from running around a wet floor around the pool? Does the lifeguard always have to remind the parents about that? They should already know. I'm just making that as an illustration of what the Jews already knew in the times of the gospel period. So they already knew that homosexuality is a sin, according to Leviticus, as I touched on part 1. So Jesus didn't have to mention about sin. What he needed to address was about the sin of the religious teachers, the religious Jews. And to those who were outside of the synagogue and were not recognized as religious folk, like the prostitutes, the lepers, the Gentiles. He ministered to them. He went out to the lost sheep of Israel. Okay, he went to speak the message of salvation that the Messiah has finally came. There's so much to get into this, but I'm just going to conclude with this. Jesus didn't have to mention the sins that were already mentioned in the Old Testament laws, because if you were a Jew back in that day, you were raised to know them. That's it for now. God bless. Shalom and Godspeed to all the ministers of the gospel of Jesus.